How's that? Welcome to another episode of Trauma Dump with Zach Adler. I'm saying it with my chest because on our last episode, my good friend Zevi Slavin, whose equipment we are currently shooting this on, let me know that I was mumbling my way through that. And he rightfully guessed it was because I still wasn't 100% married to the name. But then I remembered that my current favorite podcast, shout out, hopefully I get them all on the pod one day, Can I Go Home Now? It's 3 comedians in New York. Their podcast used to be called Sobriety, and they just changed it in the middle, like 15 episodes in. So anything's possible. This is America. We can change. Now, I'm really excited about this for multiple reasons. I'm with Yoni Banayan, who is probably in the running for most interesting man I know. And I'm obviously excited because I think you have a lot of life experience I want to ask you about, but I also am excited because we went to yeshiva together, Jewish school, for the 0 non-Jews listening, or maybe 1 or 2. But I haven't seen you in how many years?
At least a decade, I think. I mean, like seeing each other as in hanging out. With.
I think I've seen you in person because when I was out of yeshiva already, maybe even out of college, I haven't seen you since I moved to Brooklyn, but when I was still living in Queens, and like we would go to like parties, or I saw you like a Zusha concert.
Right.
We've seen each other in person.
Yeah,
within
but not
5 years.
not a sit down conversation.
We have not hung out.
Yeah,
in probably close to a decade, and that scares me. That's weird to even think about that.
How fast? Fast that's been just like a decade.
I don't even want to think, but yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
we've obviously both changed a lot, our outward appearance, but I'm sure inward appearance has changed even more. And I got to give you credit because. So I moved to Brooklyn, and I now, when people want to ask me about my journey, about like, oh, what are you up to? And like, they see the earrings and they see that I'm like not really so religious anymore and yada, yada. Everyone's like, oh, so like, everyone wants to know like, when did you start going off? When did you leave yeshiva? When did you leave the more insular frum world? Mm-hmm. And they're very surprised when I tell them like, I was learning full time, learning the blackout on Shabbat and Dominion when I was 24.
Whoa.
Because I have plenty of friends who are like grew up very religious and they're secular and they usually booked earlier.
Yeah,
I think you beat me by a couple years.
Oh really? Yeah, maybe by a year or something.
Maybe a year or something. Yeah, because you were a couple of years ahead of me. Like
I mean, I was studying smicha when I head out
in Chavetz Chaim, Queens.
Well, I was doing a different smicha program. Right. It's interesting. Like a lot of those experiences, some of them were traumatic that lent it to me leaving. But I think my leaving was very much like, it felt very heartfelt. It wasn't like a, screw you, I'm leaving type of thing.
Did it feel more like you were honoring who you were becoming and not just running away from who you were?
I was actually looking for God. I was looking for I remember
Why didn't you find him in the block and more? What's wrong with you?
I think part of it was I started questioning, part of it was like learning, like I would learn something and the rabbi would be like, this can't be it has to be this. And I'm like, why can't it be that? And I started noticing a certain theme, like the whole religion or the way I was taught it was very much filtered by some other guy's opinion. Like the guy sitting right next to me in the pulpit, like he's the guy who decides how I should read this. Yeah. And I'm like, interesting. Well, who taught him? Oh, someone else taught him someone else. At some point, I started questioning whether, like, okay, maybe this is just a little, like, not a pyramid scheme, but, someone, a chain of command that, but broken telephone, the message gets lost. And then I started questioning whether there was even a God at all.
Right.
Was a question. And I remember I was davening. I was in Chavetz Chaim, and I was studying Shliach for them. And
you were sure you were on track to be a rabbi. Like, that was a plan.
Yeah, and I actually was becoming a psychotherapist as a backup. Like,
as a backup, yeah. Just to please my parents.
It was like, I felt like, you know what, maybe I'll find the right rabbi position, or... And I remember I was praying, and I don't know if the word my mother shach, or like kind of the catch-22 phrase, like...
For this episode, we're gonna pander straight to the yeshiva crowd. Just say whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, get as inside baseball as
okay. As inside
baseball. That's like a term for like
Using
When
the gritty words.
using like the words of a very niche group of people.
Okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Insider
Yeah.
information.
So for me, I was Mamanasha. That was the thought I had. I remember I was davening, and I'm like, either there is a God,
Mhm.
and if there's a God, that means there's got to be one God. For me, it was like obvious because there's so much synchronicity in the world. There has to be like one authority, which means every thought is God's thought. So like on one hand, I'm questioning God's existence, and if the God truly exists, then my thought now of do I exist is a question God wants me to ask. So I'm like, that's option one. Option two is there's no God, and I'm just sitting here blabbering to myself. So it was like this moment I was praying. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? And I'm like, I don't know, but either way, I think I'm meant to close this book and find out for myself. And I'll either be, okay, God didn't want me to know,
Right.
didn't want me to know about him and find him in some other way, or there really wasn't God, and I started finally living my life. So that was kind of the
Bunch of follow-ups to that.
yeah, sure.
Very quickly, that the way you're describing it kind of sounds like it was an all of a sudden thing. Like it sounds to me that you are recounting a specific moment when you were in the middle of praying and had this, someone would call it an epiphany of like, this might not be real, or I'm not sure, and I feel
I had questions about the.
I'm good. Yeah, there was definitely a
There were builds that
there was a stew that you were stewing in for a while, but there was like a moment.
Yeah, I think part of it was there's a couple of factors. One of them was I was learning Rav Cook's work on
Good stuff.
I was reading the stuff on like God and life and just whatever, art, love. He has a lot of really beautiful writing.
That's, by the way, already enough to paint you as a very outsider figure within the walls of Chavetz Yeshiva.
Right, really.
Not a lot of guys learning Rav Kook.
Yeah. But I found I really related to his work. I really found it cool.
Yeah.
So I was reading his writings and finding like this God in more of a monotheistic, pantheistic blend, different than yeshiva where it's like a Santa Claus guy on the top. It's more of like everything is an expression or God itself, and now we are including ourselves. Like so, it's a very different perspective.
Yeah.
At those times, I was more intellectual. Like as I went on my path, I found a lot of experiences of that, and going, I know what you mean now. Cool. But at that time, it was intellectual pursuit. Okay, it has to be this.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big part where I started thinking of God.
That you're good. I'm just thinking that
Uh,
just the whole episode, I'm just gonna be like, just getting some good slurps in. Just really like the audio's like really
gonna
close
like
to my mouth.
pause, and I'm gonna be like, my voice is gonna like zone out.
Anyways, okay, so what you're describing is kind of, there was a stew you were stewing in, questions, doubts, of course.
Yeah.
And then there was this moment, and it's funny because it almost sounds like you were describing a Pascal's wager, and are you aware of Pascal's wager?
No.
Pascal's wager, we spoke about this, I think, my episode with Zebi. Pascal was a philosopher, and he had this formulation where basically either God is real, in which case, and he was a Christian, Christianity is true, in which case I will get rewarded handsomely for doing what I need to do as a good Christian, and I will get punished if I don't, or he's not real. And he looked at that and he said, okay, I might as well be Christian. And he said, I might as well try to convince myself that I actually do believe in this.
Because of the potential gain.
Because potential gain. Out of pure selfish, just looking out for yourself.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you made a bit of a wager. And we're like, I'm going to take the road less traveled by it. I'm going to actually see this
I
out.
definitely have a risky side. Like I've noticed over the years, like I have a strong like risky behavior part of myself. I never acknowledged even when I motorcycled. I think it was at some point later on I realized like I feel a lot of peace on the racetrack. So
would you say you thrive on a certain amount of chaos or danger?
I would say I think I do. It actually like kind of brings me a sense of peace. I don't know how to describe it. Like when I was in Israel and the rockets, like one of the rockets hit the building right next to ours. So it was like smoking up at 6:30 in the morning. And like the moment it hit, obviously there was a sense of fear. And I'm like, okay. And the next moment I was just observing, and I'm like, interesting. I wonder if I could like just be, and what an opportunity that would be to be here and present and conscious. And like, what, to even meditate with the rocket and see like, what does it do to my body? Or is there, as the force field hits, is there like, how quick can I bounce back, or can I hold it back? Can I absorb it? Can I change that energy? Like, And how do I relate with people? Like, so it was interesting. And
Well, some people are like rockets.
yeah,
No, it's.
yeah.
I mean, what you're describing.
People will throw us off. Some people, and yeah.
And like one of the ways to deal with like a confrontational person or just someone whose energy is really throwing you off is to get curious, and instead of just F this guy, you're just like, what's going on in my body right now?
Totally, yeah.
And let me explore that. Why are they setting these? Why am I getting triggered right now?
Yeah, and it's ironic because that's really ultimately where I would, sneak peek, where I found God again is.
But you're skipping.
Yeah.
You're on chapter. No, please.
Yeah, so I'm giving the sneak peek.
Yeah, I want.
Yeah, ultimately there was a finding of God, but not in the same way that I was raised. In a different way.
Suffice to say, this God you found, does he want you to learn Hella Talmud?
I don't think. No, I don't think. I think the word God is maybe an outdated word to say everything, all time, all space, myself, you, this phone, and this podcast, and every thought that goes on in your mind.
So that's a more mystical.
Yeah, I think it's almost like we have a certain shoe we wear and we grow up, and then like we keep the same shoes, and like they don't fit anymore, or feet are achy, and at some point we have to like revamp our version of how we understand God.
Yeah.
I would say it's more of like God as the way we describe like your hand, instead of calling it like, oh, it's five knuckles, 5 nails, 5 fingers attached to on joints, and explain the whole, skin covering it that's waterproof. Like you just say hand, and I think for me when I say God, it's just saying everything. That there's not much difference between me, a street sign, and God. It's the same thing. Like that.
It's actually the beautiful ambiance for this podcast. It's a very New York podcast. I want to push back on that for a second.
Sure.
I mean, no promises that I go easy on you because I'm trying to get
I'm happy to share it.
Because you're bringing up interesting ideas, and I do want to get to the core of them. Obviously, these are things I've thought about myself. And I think the first time that I came into contact with that more mystical idea of God is everything. It's not this, you have to stop trying to relate to him. Please, it's like we relate to him often in Orthodox Judaism as, or not just Orthodox, in Judaism as, please Tati, please Daddy, can I have something? Or please Daddy, bring us back to Yerushalayim. Or please Daddy, heal this sickness. And then it's like, no, it's actually like the hamakom. God is hamakom. We call him hamakom. He is the universe is within him. He is the place of the universe. This is all beautiful and very mystical. And we've all had moments where we almost feel like, oh, everything is divine. But then how to square that, and maybe you don't. Maybe your version of God doesn't have this square. But how to square that concept of God with someone a being that you can relate to in a way that makes sense on a human level and that you can beseech. Because certainly in Judaism, certainly in Christianity, certainly in Islam, God is not just God is the stop sign and I am God and God is God and we are all one. God is also, you do bring him the laundry list of things you want. You do beseech him for things. There is a relationship of help me.
Yeah.
So I wonder.
Totally. So I'm the first. There's 2 separate aspects. Maybe say the first one again, if you remember it. If not, I'll go to the second one.
Okay. I think my main thrust was just
like the beseeching of a God.
Yeah, like with this conception of God that he's everything. Is
having a focal point is helpful in embodying. Having like the man upstairs helps people embody. Please, this. It's ultimately
having the concept of the man upstairs.
Do I?
No, I'm explaining what you're saying.
It doesn't. If it serves me, I'll use it. But I don't think God is like, I can't believe you didn't. And I don't think. I think this is maybe my main point is, the moment you separate God from you, I think you're off the path. That's my thing. Like the moment you think you can pray to God upstairs, but if you think you're separate from him, like that's I would call the illusion.
Right.
And
is that what people refer to in spiritual communities when they say duality versus non-duality?
It could be. I find something I find the spiritual community particularly is I find this so ill because in a way it's like the same thing as religion. You can bypass your honest perspectives because like, well, the Halacha says this. Nope, that's not. Oh, the Rabbi said that. Like, well, how do you feel about it? I don't have any feelings on this. So a certain level of like lack of personal integrity. And I view it, if we take out the word spirituality, take it out as like, the system is working. Call it the matrix, call it a system, a science, experiments. And there's a molecular structure bobbling around, hanging out, doing random things that happen to all work synchronicity forever, and then an eternal experiences going on, quantum fields, quantum realities. Each cell has a quantum reality depending on how you perceive it. Like, it's just happening, and you're clearly a factor involved in the cellular expression. And aside from that, there's not much of a difference on a cellular level to me, you, and the salad we had this morning. And
Right.
so it's like, yeah, there's happening, and you happen to be aware of this experience. Like, for me, it's like, okay, at some point, like, cool, looks like it's all working together. I don't view it as there's someone outside of this going, okay, now move him here, move this up. It's almost like we're a finger on the hand, and that's a part of the hand. It's not the entire human, but it's clearly a part. And I think when we say God or not, it's like our cell talking about, am I Yoni or where is Yoni? Like, it's clearly me. And I'm not saying, all right, go ahead and send some more energy there. It has a system and it works. We created this process where it all works together.
Right.
So that's more of how I would see God. I think the beseeching process, it depends on the age. We're changing as a human species. We're changing on how we relate. And that's why you find a lot of people now, their perception of God is changing. Perception of male-female roles, the same shift. It's like a hierarchical perspective. First one of maybe more of internally, going more inward.
No, wait. We gotta slow down?
Yeah, sure.
Because now you've lost me. I specifically on that point. I'm gonna go to that in a second. I just want to also point out something that I feel arising in me right now, which is I don't know. I'm listening to you with rapt attention, but I don't know if your beard is giving me a bias to believe everything you're saying and agree, or the exact opposite bias of like beards have been wrong in the past.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you the invitation or I'm not giving it to you, but I'm open to the invitation of you challenging and saying, that's bullshit or whatever it allows because for me, this is not logic. This is my experience, and I'm trying to put it into words. So for me, I close my eyes, I open them, and I just see this as the reality. So it's not
do that.
Yeah.
That's a less interesting conversation to me is me and you going head to head, or even not head to head, just me asking questions, trying to like, but is this?
Yeah.
I'm very okay with letting people have their conceptions of God and me having mine, or also listening to theirs and maybe switching mine. Like, it's fine. That's less interesting to me. Yeah. I love that it's personal. The name of the podcast is Trauma Dump, not is God exist, and if so, in what way? That's not the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
But you just said something right before, and what are you talking about? You brought up male and female and how gender roles are switching in society, and we're all feeling that shift.
Yeah. And even in our society, we're going, well, I mean, isn't America a corporation? Like, people are saying, it's the same theme.
What were you saying? What was the broader context?
Instead of doing God as outside you, this higher power that we look to and beseech to, that was a model that worked for humans at a certain, we'll call stage of evolution.
Okay.
Much like a plant at a seedling stage is a very different story, like a tadpole and a frog.
Right.
So the human species
part of the evolution of human ideas.
And needed to have hell, and needed to have heaven, and needed to have these things to understand and to grow. Okay. A child, like if you say, hey, you should brush your teeth because long term, it's a lot of dentist bills, socially it's off.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. They'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to brush my teeth.
Right.
You say, if you brush teeth, like, I'll give you a prize, and, if you don't brush teeth, there's consequences. And they go, okay, well, I guess that you want the tooth fairy to whatever. So whatever the story they tell themselves, and allows them to basically move, to keep progressing. At some point, like, the heaven and hell just doesn't succeed. Let's say, it's funny, I was talking to my career coach I went to like 20, 30 years ago, because I'm changing things up again on myself. And she's like, Yoni, it's funny because your ideal day is very much similar to what it was 20 days ago. Last time it was like learning Gemara or, thinking about life. And now it's like first thing in the morning, I jump in an ice cold bath instead of, going to shul. First thing was ice cold bath, and I meditate there. And then I meditate, the 4 hours. And,
that's not surprising to me though, because what all that says to me is your core self hasn't changed, which is
Not much.
you're a decently intense person, but you're intense because you're passionate about truth and you're passionate about connection and you're passionate about spirituality. That hasn't
I
changed.
think I was passionate about God, the concept of the higher power, of something that can save me, be there for me. I think that was a big piece. I think with time it became more of like more of a love affair, like with myself, and I see life mostly now as like just a long date, a really long date with
With creation, with
and everything is myself, because where do you experience it? In my own body, right? Even what I see and hear.
everything is yourself because everything outside of you experience it in your own body.
Yeah. So if you start imagine, like I was driving today to work here, and I'm noticing as the car like almost runs into me, and I noticed my body tensed up, and then I moved, and I'm like, let me review that sensation and all the other sensations that are going on at this moment as these up and down or lefts and rights and physiology, this whole cellular construct bobbling around, sitting in a car, experiencing driving, and I hear the birds chirp, 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 and I'm sitting there, I'm noticing I'm buzzing on my lips, and I'm like, wow, what an interesting experience.
I would crash if I was doing that much noticing while driving.
Yeah, I would have been the best driver.
You're like, what is this experience I'm feeling now, having T-boned this man, this man's hot odyssey on the flatbush.
But for me, I think I was looking for more. I wanted to experience a deeper sense of living, and it's something I feel like, unfortunately, like in the Jewish community, it's like I find they're one of the least spiritual groups I find in we call it spiritual communities, other religions that you have found. I found a lot more spiritual people. Not to say they aren't in Judaism, but it's rare.
There's certainly heavy pockets in Judaism. I think spirituality in
like intellectually there's stuff, but it's like I'm intellectualized. But really, like I'm in love here. I don't even know what to say here. Like I'm just
that's Karlbach level of just talking about it like I'm in love. I'm in love. Yeah. Well, it's there doesn't seem to be a lot of what I would refer to as sheer.
I love it. I love it. I wish there was more space for it.
There doesn't seem to be a lot of sheer in Judaism.
Yeah.
But that's because the modern world, I think that the older world, the ancient world, and even just a couple 100 years ago, as the world progresses, as science progresses, as modernity, the machine this thing we built, the industrial, what's it called, the Industrial Revolution and its consequences, it becomes harder and harder to have a bend. Your bend in the world be this sort of sheer. I'm in love. Like there's something about that's very.
I think here's a thought. Yeah. I don't think part of the problem is we dubbed it as spirituality, and this is mechanics, and this is science. If you put it all as in you're alive, like forget the word God, spirituality, you're alive, and we're having experiences, and like what type of experiences are they? Like that's literally how I feel like that would be a nice way. I feel like if people rebranded it, it would be you're alive until further notice, like you experience aliveness, and how do you want to experience this? Like and that's something I ask myself a lot. Like what do I want to feel? What do I want to experience? It's like, and in a way, I was talking to one of your buddies right before this, and he was talking about like being alive, and I was just saying like, are you happy you're alive? And I'm like, I'm at this point, I'm not like afraid of death.
You're just happy you're alive.
I'm so grateful that I because these cells, if they, they're pretty soon will be that cup of tea, and they're not going to appreciate the experience,
This conversation is that everything you say makes me ping pong into 6 things I want to go into. But I'm also trying to give you space to. But I have like 1,000 things running through my brain.
Yeah. Well, the set is I'm appreciative. I'm grateful. That I'm alive and I get
to be fair. I always got that sense from you even before you went on this journey. Yeah. I think no, and I think that I sense it more. Yeah. And you seem very grounded, but you had a zest for life in yeshiva. That's for sure. And I think that's just to get on a personal level. Like we weren't super close, but I remember thinking to myself like looking around yeshiva, almost like waking up from a dream. I mean, Queens really did that to me. Specifically, waking up from a dream of like this is where my life ended up. Let me look around and see. And I saw a lot of things I loved. I'm not talking about the yeshiva. I'm talking about the guy, like the men I was now in army with, in lockstep with. And I saw a lot to love, but I was also like, I'm quite different. I'm quite different from most of the people here. And then I remember thinking, like, there's a few people here who have a certain zest or softness or sensitivity or create something that thing you're talking about, that desire to of constantly asking yourself, how do I want to experience life, and in wanting more connection or more wonder. And I was like, yeah, like Yoni's definitely in that list. Like, you're one of those guys. You know, I felt that connection. It's very interesting. Like,
at that point, I didn't realize how much I stood out. I was just so in my own way.
That's really, like, feel like to me, you stood out like a sore thumb.
I definitely did.
Stood out.
But I didn't realize to what level. Like, I knew people were like, that's Yoni. And I'm like, well,
they thought he's an out-of-the-box guy.
Yeah, and I'm like, they said it. I guess I'm free to do me.
Right,
but I didn't realize, like, that even then I was, like, I think when I left, and this, I'm so grateful, like, that I don't have kids. I didn't have, like, a marriage holding me back or anything that allowed me to go, like, off the deep end. Like, let's see how
time to explore
goes. Yeah, like, let's see what happens if I follow that train of thought. Let's experiment here. Like, I really got to experiment with in a lot of different ways that I'm, like, so grateful that I got to have.
Yeah, yeah. Way to flip that script, you know? I feel like growing up Orthodox, that there's, like, this script, which is like, still single.
Right, and I feel bad for my single friends. My married friends. I'm just like, because I see them and I'm like, they're like, yeah, but you can just go to him. Like, I'm setting up a meeting with someone. He's lives in the French Alps. He's like a yogi, like a yogic master, and he also is a
yogi
shaman.
There, like the catcher for the
kind of like, I would say, a yogic master is someone who knows how to do either work with movements in their body or breath work or just internally to control their state.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a way of saying it's a yogic master. You can have other masters, but that's the way, the form of yogic. And he's also a shaman. So like an interesting combination between these approaches. I also like it because as I got more into my own path, I started dabbling in Kabbalah, which is really a blend between yogic and shamanic approach, which is maybe not how people see it now, but
that's how you see it.
1,000%.
Because you have experience with both of those traditions, and then you looked at Kabbalah through that lens, and you're like,
I mean, Kabbalah has like it's a very broad range of practices, but it's similar. Like there's like kundalini yoga and bhakti yoga, which is like devotional, like saying God's name over and over again, which is definitely a form of Jewish tradition. Like
this is
David Hamelech talks about in Tehillim a lot. You know, he
what, yoga or about.
Well, he talks about breath work in his Tehillim.
Really?
Yeah, he says I'll pant like a dog. What the heck? Like he says I breathe this way at the nighttime, and then I sing your praises.
This is like in Tehillim. This is his
straight up. Yeah.
He's discussing breath work.
He does it. He's a poet.
Right.
You know,
he's not referring to something that you could very well
literally,
be breath work.
It's he gives instructions of like how he gets to the state. He's like, whoa. I sit there day and night. I don't let sleep leave my eyes. I don't let sleep take me over, and I say this thing. So he goes to this trance state over your quasi asleep, quasi awake, and then he's like putting himself in this trance state, saying God's name over and over again. You know, and he even says, play it with the following instrument. Bakino or Nebel. He says the instrument. Use this instrument to get to this state while singing this prayer. Like he literally says, like in the thing, like use the following guitar, lute, and a violin, and sing this. Like so, it is one of those things that are like lost. Like it straight up says it. It straight up says like these things, and we're like, ah.
But he doesn't mean that. He meant Vikia Seder. That's what he meant.
Exactly.
That's what he meant.
Yeah. And then you just read it, and for me, when I see people, if I read people like David Hamelech, like the Tehillim, it's an inspiration for me because I know I'm not off my bonker, not on the rocker. It's like I can, like I read it and it's relatable. I know what he means.
Also, David certainly had in spades that quality that you were talking about of that just dating God, he was in love. He was God infused. He was head over heels.
But it's rare to find a mystic, a prophet, a master who's like in that way who isn't.
Right. I'm assuming because you need an emotional passion connection to get you to go.
Yeah. And I think power can only go so far. Your strength, power, God's power, that can only go so far. There's some point it's love or awe. It's just, you know, I mean, think about like if you're in a relationship with someone, you're like, they set their boundaries so well. Like, how long will you stay with them because they set the boundaries so well? Like, how much of a turn on? They're so smart. Like, at some point, it's like, they're just so loving. Like, I'm in love with them. Like, at some point, like, a relationship has to evolve to a more sustainable form of connection. You know,
There
like,
needs to be a little bit of bleeding past the boundaries.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's
Not that boundaries aren't healthy.
yeah.
but
Maybe the word bleeding is throwing me off. What do you mean?
So I won't use the word bleeding. No, I think I know exactly what you're saying. You are not advocating people shouldn't have boundaries in their interpersonal relationships or their relationship with God. You are saying that for something long term, to build something long term, a relationship of love, a passionate relationship, the focus cannot be just on the boundaries. You should have the boundaries, but it's okay. Like any truly passionate relationship is gonna once in a while.
It doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
it's like when you think of your best friend, like, you really think about like who hooked the other person up or helped the other person, or
Right.
or if they spoke too much, you had to go and you had to stay a little longer. Like, it doesn't matter. I think this is a key component that I through my path that I found interesting was that it's just like every school of thought has an amazing system in one way. Like, maybe I wouldn't put Chabad in the system, but I don't view it as a full system. It's an aspect of one system, but it doesn't include movement, breath, food, how you should sleep, how you should. There's a lot of components in a process system that it doesn't have.
I feel like the only Torah source that I can even think of that discusses like how to live on the more mundane, like food and exercise, is like Rambam.
Yeah, and he has a very holistic. He studied with the Sufis
Maimonides.
also. Like, he has more of a broader.
Sorry, he did what?
He studied with the Sufis.
I have no idea he did that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
He studied with the Sufis?
Yeah. I mean, I imagine they studied with him too, but they're not. They're very similar to the process.
I know that he
God.
learned-
You know.
I know that he learned Aristotle through the teachings of Averroes, who was a Muslim Aristotelian scholar.
I mean, he was a pretty sportive person, but
Yeah.
you find many Kabbalists like Abraham Lafi studied with the Sufis as well.
Or are the Sufis again? I should probably ask that.
It's like a Kabbalist is a Jewish mystic. Well, Sufis are Islamic.
Oh, they are Islamic.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine today, an old friend who went to yeshiva with me, and I'm talking about yeshiva like first grade, and we just connected again, and we spoke about like the phrase Shamar v'Zachar, like Shamar v'Zachar, like the phrase in Torah, like to safeguard and remember my commandments, and I find in most of these traditions at some point, did the leader who's initiating this process, like Rav Kook's an example, has to toe a fine line between Shamar, like keep the laws, and Zachar, which is really remembrance, like remembering God, remembering that relationship that you've always had. And that's the piece where I might be saying a lot, but
Keep going.
yeah. So that's the piece where you find like Rav Kook, like a vegetarian. And
Yeah, I
he ate,
love
like-
telling people that.
yeah, and like he ate it. He's like, there's not going to be karbanos of this migdash.
That's like, by the way, like a real easy way to trigger certain people is just talk about like, you know, like the Torah actually wanted us to be vegan. There was only a concession after Noah and the flood that we ate animals.
yeah.
That's just an easy way. No,
Yeah.
liberal. No. Like it's short
Yeah.
circuits, but it's, the Torah was a vegan document.
But here is this guy, Rav Kook, has to balance that. He has to tell everyone, I eat meat and Shabbos, a little piece, and like to remember the Beis HaMikdash, even though in the future we're not gonna. Like, okay, like it sounds like the law says it, I'm gonna follow it, and maybe that's not my path, but at the moment, but I find I don't know how we got here, but yeah.
I don't care. We got our. I like the journey.
Yeah.
It is interesting. This episode and the last episode are getting very heady about spirituality, and I'm not upset about that. It's been a while since I've like really spoken about these things, like really gone into the weeds about spiritual journeys and such. I would characterize my life for the past bit of time as like pretty secular.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't mean I have religious friends. I still think about religion, but my inner life has been very secular, and I do often think I wouldn't say I know, but I think I have a guess that I have the sensitivities of someone who, goes down certain mystical routes, as do I think many, many people who would never identify as mystical or as into mysticism, but they have those sensitivities. They have that yearning deep inside, and maybe they just never found where to plug it in.
Yeah, totally.
And
It's like everyone wants a relationship and they just haven't found the right partner.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I felt like yeshiva wasn't the right partner, but I really put a lot into it.
Yeah.
And it's lovely to hear that it definitely appears that you found different places to plug in this yearning for mysticism. And I'm still looking for those things.
Yeah.
Maybe not as actively, but I still am. And yeah, I just want to take a moment to appreciate it. That's really cool. Before I pivot to something a little more specific.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do a little pivot. So something you said, 10, 20 minutes ago, who's keeping time, is you likened, correct me if I'm wrong, you likened the evolution that you believe humanity should be making or is making from a certain conception of God to a more open, I am God conception of God. And you liken that to the way that society is
From patriarchal to matriarchal.
or just gender is being played with.
Yeah.
And that brings me into a question I actually had written down that I wanted to talk to you about, which is masculinity and femininity. And it's so interesting because, I'm trying to think how I want to move this. There's so much to talk about there because as someone who came from Orthodox Judaism, from the yeshiva world, which is so patriarchal, there's really no other way to put it. And that's not said with hate. That's a lot of things are patriarchal, and it's not all bad, but it is patriarchal. It's a boys' club, to a certain extent from Judaism. Yeshivas are just like gentlemen's clubs without women or strippers or cigars or golf or fun. But to then moving to Brooklyn, and obviously, I don't think it's surprising anyone. I have a lot of friends who have varying degrees of sexualities, varying degrees of gender identities, and I'm still figuring that stuff out. Not really for myself. I'm pretty happy being the cisgendered man that I am, but I certainly have people very close to me who are seriously on a journey around gender. And then to have conversations with you and certain people and realize that once you go the mystical road in Judaism, gender also, Kabbalah has a lot to say about it. And there is a certain faction of hyper lefty Jews who are either in the trans community or allies, and they talk a lot about Kabbalah. And it's just an interesting mix. But I'm not leaving it all aside. This is a huge preamble. I want to talk to you about specifically masculinity because this is foreshadowing for something we'll talk about in the future. You are going to be running men's retreats.
Yeah.
That is something and I want to talk more about that.
Yeah.
But for right now, you're in the men's health space. You're in the broader wellness space, but you're interested in masculinity, in men's health. And we spoke a little bit on the phone before this conversation just about the ways in which some well-meaning people who want to help men bring out their divine masculinity and bring out their manliness actually end up pushing them kind of into a binary or kind of into a box. I would love to just open the floor with that. What is your relationship to masculinity? What does that mean to you? What does that word even mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's just a word. I don't view myself as I'm masculine, I'm feminine. I think I realize I have a combination of a lot of those. I saw myself as pretty feminine a lot of times, and I've never dated people, and they'd be like, "You're a really masculine guy," and I'm like, "I'm masculine." It's interesting to see and then someone else that's such a self-feminine thing to do. And I noticed wait, last person told me that was masculine. And
when did you realize that maybe you were just both? That you were a nice dance between masculine and feminine?
The same thing can be viewed as both.
Yes.
So it's you hold the door open for someone, that's dubbed as masculine. Well, I'm caring for someone.
You're being nurturing with the door.
Or it could be I make you a tea. Oh yeah, he's taking care of me. Or I'm like your mama. I just want to give you a tea, sweetie pie. So I find a lot of it's people need words or something to describe something. And it's these concepts to put in nice boxes. For me, I find the same as spirituality. It's these are just words, and when it comes down to it, a lot of I see people kind of the booyah thing. It's an aspect. Sure, the booyah.
Don't use the shorthand. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Tell our audience what do you mean by people using the booyah thing.
Okay,
'Cause I know what you mean.
Sure. I think when we come into maybe I've worked in and then gone to programs or men's groups with more of the express aggression, allow yourself to
They're
punch.
about masculinity.
Yeah,
About
and about
aggression.
not a hiding from that power.
Yeah.
And I think that's essential
Mm-hmm.
for men and women, for everyone, to be able to step into their power, to be able to say no, to be able to say yes, to be able to to say not now, later, whatever it is. Like,
are you saying that? Would you agree the statement that masculinity isn't obviously just for men?
It's a
Or again, it's just a word. But
everyone has
we
a
have to-
blend of masculine and feminine,
Exactly.
even on a bodily level, like research.
There are men who are very aggressive. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There are men who are more naturally aggressive, who might maybe their men's retreat focus would be on how to be softer around other men, softer with women.
Yeah.
And then there are women who are maybe need more. They need aggression.
Yeah.
It's all different.
Yeah. So I think sometimes we like the way I would see it is more of the problem, and I want to go back to in general the I think one of the biggest illnesses in the Western society is the inability to listen within. Inability
With it.
to listen within.
Explain.
What do you feel? How do you see this? Is this good for you or bad for you?
Again, this is voicing the voice you ask yourself.
These are the questions that people do not know the answer to.
Oh.
Well, what should I do? Is this what I feel? Is this right or wrong? Like, knowing how to make...
They're just not in touch with their own emotions.
Yes, is this good for me? Is this apple good for me? Well, it says, the doctor said, like, hey, is this relationship one that's helping me? I don't know. I mean, it's supposed to be a relationship. You should go to a therapist for it. There's no inner GPS going on. And I think part of the men's community of expressing healing through aggression allows people to get some form of autonomy back. But it's kind of like it's a little bit of a... I'm not against it. I appreciate the approach, and I have used it myself, and it's been really helpful in healing. It's kind of like it's a toddler taking him to be a teenager, or a teenager to being a 20-year-old. But at some point, that approach is needed, but we can't, we have to, at some point, look inside and go, what do I need? Like, what am I? What experience do I want to have? And I would call that, like, ownership of our life. And you can call it masculine, you can call it feminine. I find that with men in particular, especially in the Jewish community, it's common where, we're just like, raised a certain way, raised, okay, this is how you, live a life, and you're meant to raise and get married and have this much money. If you make less than 100,000, you're a complete failure. Like certain basic, things, and just like with women, they have certain, you have to be a good housewife and you have to be pretty and be a certain weight or, whatever the stories are. And there's not much going on in most communities or people. Hey, what do I want? Like, what do I like? So there's a certain level of curiosity that can only come about when we peel off the layers. Like, let's get rid of the traumas and the stories and these things, not just intellectually, but like physically in our body. Let's find a way that our nervous system, our endocrine system can handle that. And then from there, once you can handle it, you can look at it. And once you can look at it, then you can decide, is it working for me?
Right.
And if it's working for you, go for it. And if it isn't, can you find something that works even better? So that's kind of the invitation in this retreat, for example. But
And I want we're going to talk more about the retreat.
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated that you're doing that work. I want to actually take a chance to take some shots at Josh Judas. It's my podcast. I can do what I want. No, this is something I've spoken about with friends. This is, again, my experience. And I'm not just taking this as I hope people don't take what I do as a tax for the tax sake. Mm-hmm. I'm more trying to understand, and maybe if something needs fixing, then it needs fixing. But I felt, especially in yeshiva, not just from things my rabbi told me, but also from things you see in Torah. You see concepts like a man should not trust himself until the day he dies. You have a Yetzer Tov, if you have a Yetzer Tov, you have a good inclination, you have a Yetzer Hara. You have this man is born a donkey. I'm just quoting Tanakh right now.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have the overlaid over the tradition, you have the yeshiva experience, which is very much about you really should not be making big decisions by yourself, trusting your own instincts, listening to yourself, what you want,
your emotions.
you should be asking a rabbi.
Yeah.
To the point where we have a real sickness in society where people will have very serious questions about their life that will have repercussions for years, and they will go to a noisy wedding and wait in line to try and talk to a gadol ador, a Torah giant, and ask him over the second dance, should I get divorced? And maybe that's not what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And no, I don't. The yeshivas we went to did not advocate. They actually ripped on that last thing. But still inherent in that system,
Yeah.
I felt like I had a very hard time trusting myself and trusting what I want.
Totally.
I was like, no. If I want something, there must be some selfish yetzer hara reason. There must be, I'm doing something.
Yeah.
It's to get some personal gain, and it's not the right thing to do. And I feel like what a powerful thing if you can help people get in touch with knowing what they want.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to follow it.
you don't have to follow it.
And that's I think that's the scariest thing.
Yeah.
I think scarier than having your decisions means that you are in charge of your decisions. You know, I think for me, some of the scariest moments or the hardest moments of my journey, I'm still on my journey. I don't know how to put into words, but there are certain moments. And I think one of the biggest moments was when I guess we can call left the religion. I still felt very like devout in my way, but it was a moment when there was no right or wrong. There was no good or bad. There was no what I should or shouldn't do. Everything was whatever you want. And then the world got really big, really quickly. That was really scary, you know, to have that level of openness. You know, it's nice to be held like a child. I mean, treated that way, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. You know, it's that the path of the notion of anyone being able to make a decision for someone else. You know, I understand sometimes we have to make an executive decision like, hey, setting a boundary with someone or something, but the notion of in our life having the capacity to make a decision for someone else is so radical. You know, but I find
Well, what would you say to someone who would say, "Oh, you're trying to teach young or just people to really listen to themselves and what they want, and it's all about them and their God and listening to narcissism." What would you say to someone who says that sounds to me like narcissism? Stop thinking so much
what would
about
you
yourself.
define narcissism? Like, what does narcissism mean?
Good question.
Yeah.
So let's say narcissism is thinking only about yourself and what you stand to gain to the exclusion of thinking about others.
Yeah. So there is a certain level of you're looking within it, and it's something, you know, my dad's had this conversation with me a lot. My journey has like, you're very selfish. You're just like with it. You're just all about yourself. Self-centered, egotistical.
Self-centered, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a certain truth to it. Like, yeah, I am self-centered, very much so. Like, I spend most of my time by myself, you know, and centering on myself. Yeah. So there's certain, reality to that. I think, I don't know that's a problem to be centered on yourself. I mean, isn't that a good place to start? Like, yeah. And I also think it's like, I think the question becomes like, we can still work with others. You know, I don't think it's a contradiction. Like practically, like I like to meditate. I still need to eat food. Like it's not a contradiction to figure that out and then figure out how to eat food. And then with time, I get better at how can I eat food and still stay in a meditative state. So with time, how can I like care about myself and care for others at the same time? You know, so I think it's more of a question of development. You know, like I would say maybe it's a lower level when someone can only see their experience. At some point, if you learn how to experience yourself as a witness, then other people come into your life and you can experience them too. You know, then you can see, well, what needs to happen for Yoni? Yoni needs to go to sleep a little earlier. Yoni needs to, you know, he needs to shampoo his hair. You know, and then someone else, and I go, well, this guy, he needs a smile. He needs a hug, and, you know, he needs someone to drive him to a Flatbush. Yeah, does that answer your question? Like, a little bit.
Well,
yeah.
I'm gonna keep excavating on this point.
Sure.
What would you say to someone who, what you're preaching is an empowerment, which can only come from being in touch with what your actual desire, what you want, how you're feeling. And it doesn't mean you have to listen, because sometimes, often in life, what you want if you were in touch with your feeling, you would realize the thing that I most want right now that would make me happiest would hurt someone else or wouldn't be fair to someone else. And you don't have to listen to the desire, but you're in touch with it.
Yeah.
But what would you say?
Choice.
But it gives you power. It gives you power that now you do know what you want and you could choose to listen to it even if it did hurt someone. What would you say to someone who says, I'm afraid to even go down this journey of self-discovery, of finding my power, of finding my boundaries, of finding my ability to say yes to what I want and no to what I don't want?
Yeah.
Because I'm worried about what I would do with power.
Yeah.
Because maybe we have a story in ourselves that's been given to us since we were very little that we are not to be trusted with power. We will be selfish with it.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's an aspect of just realize the story. Yeah, okay. Most things are stories. They may have truth or not. It's a story.
But let's say someone is dealing with the fear of, I fear the story is
So
true.
then let's test it out. Let's take a test drive. Let's take a little bit of your power. How do you deal with it? And then tease it, play with the concept. I think also, this is a big part. I find a lot of people who are like, yeah, this person is toxic and that person is toxic and I'm setting boundaries and, I'm taking my power back, and they're just like basically like a total jerk to everyone, and
It's weaponized therapy speak.
yeah, and I find the part of the problem, I wouldn't say is the concept, it's the method. It's like you're trying to fix a car with like a hammer. Like you need a hammer, maybe there is a certain part where there's a nail, I don't know. You're gonna need an Allen wrench, a screwdriver, a drill, you're gonna need some coating paint, you're gonna need, solder. I'm making things up, but you're gonna need multiple tools. Yeah. So I think part of the problem is that the tools that are used are not used functionally. So people say like, yeah, you got your power back. But they don't give people a way to get autonomy back. So instead, they keep just like wielding the same weapon. It's like, and it doesn't help. So they have a screwdriver and they're like just using that screwdriver everywhere and everything because they think that will solve the problem.
I think I might be a little lost. What is the screwdriver here?
Let's say it's like, I want to be empowered. Hey, I'm going to be empowered. I want to be empowered.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, why? Like, well, I want to have a happy life. Okay. Do you want other people in that life? Yeah. Do you want your friends in life? Yeah. How do you want them to be treated? I want them to be treated well. Do you want them to be treated well by you? Yeah. Okay, so part of your happy life includes other people's happiness. That's what you want. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now you keep setting boundaries. Is that actually getting you what you want? Mm-hmm. Like, so a lot of it's just like therapy. This is like an interesting thing. It's like, I was talking to someone about this a while ago, but like, is your therapist happy? And then the answer often is like, I mean, he could be. Yeah, I don't see. I think he's on his journey. He's on his healing journey. And it's like talking to like someone who's broke, trying to help you make money. It's like, you're not going to get that far. I'm not going to say therapy is bad, but it can't be the only approach you use to empowerment. Does that make sense? So therapy has certain like...
There's other tools.
Yeah, therapy says like, hey, you're in charge. You have to say no. And yeah, of course. But like, what's the resistance?
Like, to be clear, just because, I mean, you are someone with degrees in therapy, and I'm someone who is applying to grad schools for it.
Totally.
Good therapists would not co-sign the way some young people nowadays, or whatever age people, are weaponizing therapy concepts.
1,000%.
But boundaries are good, but I don't think your therapist would be like, oh, and you told your mom you'll never speak to her again just because? That's a win. I'll take you out to ice cream. Like, they're not doing that.
Boundaries? Yes, but there is a certain aspect of, as therapists, I would think about the thing we maybe as a therapist school of thought is that do I equip my client with enough tools to live a wholesome life? Meaning, if I empower them to set boundaries, but don't empower them with the capacity to experience themselves and others, like it's like getting them a car without a driver's license. Like, yeah, there's truth to that. Like, you want to give people the power, but also upgrade in consciousness. And like, yeah, and that means if they set a boundary, you might want to say, hey, you know how that made me feel? Oh, that hurt your feelings. Yeah, you're setting your boundaries. It's really good, but I'm also human. I like boundaries too. So does that make sense? Like,
it does.
Yeah. So I would say it's more of, I think these things get like just generalized, but if you break it down, of course, it is self-centered to a certain extent. But I think we generally live in harmony if you look inside.
Also, there is such a thing as heal people, and hurt people. Like, because again, to harp on the selfishness that you want to, like, that someone would want to stay away from.
Yeah.
I love what you said about, like, if there's this worry that getting into your power will equal you not treating people, misusing said power. Like, you can always test drive it. And you said that, like, okay, if part of your wanting a happy life is that you treat others well, but even that is a little selfish. That's self-centered in that I want friends, so therefore, I would want to come at it.
That works for me. For someone else, it could be.
Well, let me finish. I would want to come at it as whether or not I want them in my life or not. Other people exist and exist in the exact same way that I exist, and therefore, because I feel like whatever's deep in my bones that I deserve to be happy, or that I have every right to go try to be happy, they do too. I'm not going to get in the way of that. It's not because I'll feel better because I have friends now. It's not that that's bad, but like there has to be a deeper level, which is they have. Who am I to ruin their happiness?
Yeah,
like they exist too.
But I think we all watch movies and we all love when like it turns out good. Why? I think because we do care.
We empathize.
Yeah.
We care. We automatically care. Yeah.
I think it's human nature. And to the pack, it's interesting. I've actually worked with like sociopaths. People are really, they really don't care about other people. And they're like, I could really cause a lot of pain to this person. I'm wondering, is someone tell me I shouldn't, or, I don't know, I'm kind of wondering. Like, and then when you toy with it, on a practical level, it generally doesn't work out when you have that method, at least in a typical social level. I'm not talking about a geopolitical or, that's out of my pay grade for this conversation. But I think within typical conversations, I think even people who are sociopathic benefit from healthy relationships. And it's just that they aren't given. People go like, "That's wrong. You shouldn't do this." As opposed to having that decision-making process and having them explore what it could be like. So even people who like, I don't really care about your happiness. They might care about that if they can work with you well. Let's say he's like a manager, or she's a manager. If I can work with you well, then I'm for jumping off a lot, but
yeah. Okay, interesting. Okay, let's bring it back. I love this. We're really touching on so many ideas that could deserve their own podcast, but
I feel like you should go like this, and the others just like
constellation.
We should go there, but let's come back to here.
Also trying not to turn this, even though the name of the podcast, at least as of right now, is Trauma Dump, I don't want to turn it into a full therapy session because I'm not going to pay. I
feel like I quit being a therapist. I mean, I still do therapy with a few clients, but most of my work is more wellness oriented.
Well, back to masculinity and femininity. What are sorts of things? What are sorts of concepts in the modern world that you think are hurting men specifically?
When you say modern world, do you mean like America? Do you mean?
Let's say America.
Okay.
Let's say America. Your retreats can be mostly for Americans, I assume.
Yeah.
Not even religious Jews or ex-religious Jews. Dudes in America.
Yeah.
Look, masculinity right now, I bet if you did like a Google tracking of how many times a word gets Googled, it has just shot up, the word masculine, because, toxic masculinity came into the lexicon a few years ago, and now we've got this preponderance of male grifters who kind of somewhat accurately diagnose a real issue in society around men and then sell them on a kind of bullshit masculinity. I'm thinking of the Andrew Tates of the world, and to some degree Jordan Peterson, although I have a more complicated relationship with him. But yeah, like I don't know what you're aware of, what you're not. There's like I
was in the Himalayas.
Yeah, you're out of it. Well, let me tell you that there's right now masculinity is a topic. It's a topic I think because feminism has been for the most part doing really great work, and like the world is feminizing, which is to say it's maybe balancing out, and maybe in some spaces and more lefty spaces it's become hyper feminine sort of space. And there's just a lot of men feel either disenfranchised or don't know where to put their aggression. There's all this talk of we used to go to war, like what is this office job, which is that's modern malaise. Everyone deals with that. That's men and women equally deal with what the fuck is a 9 to 5. But yeah, what are some ways that you plan on in your retreat and also just in your life, like reclaiming a masculinity that is healthy and is not destructive, but honors this sort of aggression? I don't know about you, I mean, thank God my mental health has been, I'm in a great place. But like when I'm not, all I deep down want to do is get into a fist fight. I want to punch and be punched. And I think that is, again, not just men. I think that is a masculine energy and aggression that so many people feel.
Yeah.
How do you do it? How do you get in touch with it? How do you move through that energy in a way that doesn't hurt other people? What does that look like?
I mean, I found men's groups really helpful for that.
What happens?
Like whereas you actually have someone like holding a punching bag or holding something, and who do you want to punch? You know,
Often it's ourselves.
okay,
You don't want to punch yourself.
yeah. So we'll have your parent, mom, dad, self, whatever it is, maybe multiple pillows, and you give them all punches. You will hold them, and as you're punching, maybe they pause. What's coming up for you? Maybe pull you aside and have someone else punching mom, punching self, and then observing like why does guy need to get punched? You know,
It's very sad for me that
yeah,
we have to book flights to go to places like Costa Rica or to go on retreats to have anywhere in society. I was going to say, I'll finish the thought. Anywhere in society where men or women can show this sort of aggression. And then that's not necessarily true because jiu-jitsu doesn't, like the gym exists, jiu-jitsu exists, but it's never really talked about in terms of mental health. It's not talked about enough.
yeah.
There are fitness. It's mental fitness.
There are I was originally exposed to it by Mankind Projects. It's a men's psychodrama group. I remember I was
Psychodrama group. What does that mean?
so instead of like talking about therapy, you act it out. So instead of saying I'm sad, you go, that is not what a sad man looks like.
Whoa.
So you get to really emote. It's almost like therapy is the trailer, and psychodrama is a movie. So it's like
Psychodrama.
yeah.
Is psychodrama considered a branch of like psychology?
Yeah, I mean it's been created a while back. Yeah.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? Similar-ish is I only know this because I was a big Beatles fan and John Lennon did it very famously. Primal scream therapy.
Yeah. So part of the psychodrama is my experience has a lot of screaming. I definitely remember as a therapist, like, you know, every couple Sundays coming in, like, so as you were saying, you know, and they're like, I just lost my voice. Go on, you know, or I did some process. And I will say, our voices are such powerful mechanisms to change, not just on a emotional, spiritual, but physically. It runs through your vagus nerve. Right. So when you speak, sing, hum, you vibrate the whole nerve, and it totally rewires your body. So if
I know a little about the vagus nerve because as someone who deals with psychosomatic, I know that the vagus nerve is a very big key player in the nervous system dealing with stress.
Yeah.
Right. And trauma.
Totally. Yeah. So, but if we can vibrate that nerve, it's like the CD player. Remember the Walkmans we used to have, and it stops and it starts over and it goes. So when we scream or make a powerful sound that vibrates the nerve has to reassess. The body and brain have to go into a moment of assessment. Hey, what's going on here? How we feeling? What's the temperature in the room? You know, and at that moment you go, I'm powerful. I fucking got this. You know, and at that moment there's a moment of clarity where you have a whole new perspective of the world. Suddenly you're powerful, you're focused, you're centered, you're in your power.
Yeah.
So
Very much the same way that good posture does the same thing.
yeah,
Good posture sends a signal to your brain, what you have right now and I don't,
right.
that I'm capable, my back is straight, I'm not actually afraid. I know I felt afraid, but I have good posture. I actually could face what's ahead of me.
So yeah, it tells yourself something, and this is the secret. I would find all these practices I find have missing links. The missing link there is still you have to be connected to your body. If you're not connected to your body, there's only so far the neural connection will go.
But what do you mean by that?
Meaning, anything you see or hear or taste or think creates a sensation in the body. In fact, the sensation is there before you get the food. You go, I want a sandwich. I want a pickle. There's a moment before your body sends a sensation, and then it prompts pickle. And you go, I want a pickle.
Right.
But that's a sensation, you know, and that's so I would say I found a lot of these approaches are amazing, but are missing a component. It's like, I love Chavetz Chaim for its psychoanalysis. And I use that when I got into the yogic system. I got to really analyze this. What is working? Let's just do this approach for 1 week, and let's take a scientific method. Do this. Oh, maybe it's because of this. Okay, let's resolve that and come back to it. Is it still working? Yes, it is still working. So yeah, I was able to. So these things are all systems. So for men, if they have a way to work with other men, and that's, I would say, yeah, the retreat aspect, but They are opportunities to, if you have a friend that you're willing to do this with, say, can I express aggression with you? Actually, I was
just scream.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember Yarif Uzailov.
I do.
Yeah, so we used to meet once a week. It was me, him, and some other people we did therapy with together, a group of therapists. And we come to our house, the house I had across the street from Chavetz. Once a week, we'd all do a group together. And we would explore how to hold space and express those things. So if it's a projection, a story, and then, let's say I have a projection, I would speak it out, I would scream it out, talk it out, cry it out, whatever it is, have someone else step in there, observe it. So I get to really play with it and go, what reality do you want to happen? And in this state of power, I get to change it. And because I'm so aware, there's so much neurons firing, it changes the story. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
And then the neurons, you don't need to fight as much because you got it.
This is so fascinating to hear. Like you're in yeshiva and you're across or you're right out of yeshiva and you're across the street.
Yeah.
Doing
I felt like it was a alternative, like I was living a double life, but not out of hiding.
Right.
It was a double life, but for practical purposes, I was like open to it. Wow. I'm sure I would have invited the rabbis over if they wanted to come. But yeah.
Listen, rabbis need to scream too. Rabbis need some
I think some of them can use it.
I love this idea. I really am in love with the idea of healthy ways to actually show aggression and to process your aggression, which means feeling it and expressing it.
Yeah, and if you don't feel it, the other alternative is that's the anxiety, trauma. The number one reason I believe why we hold these things, especially with men, and I imagine with everyone, is we don't want to hurt others.
Yeah.
And we don't want to hurt ourselves. So we can't express that because that avalanche will kill some.
It's like a fire that you're just worried is going to consume. So you don't even want to light the match.
Yeah,
because you're afraid you're not going to be able to control.
Yeah.
There's also certain
having a good space is important.
There's some gaslighting both in some from culture and also just in general culture. I think that anger, especially men's anger, is just seen as so dangerous because I'm saying two different things. In society, in modern society, in secular society, men's anger is very, inappropriate. It's very inappropriate because, unfortunately, men do horrible things and have forever done horrible things when they're angry, much more so than women. And then specifically in Torah culture, in Torah communities, I mean, you read some of like Mashiach Sharman, maybe this is a misreading, but you read some of the Musar Sfarim, some of the character development books that you read in yeshiva, and they kind of tell you like there's no place for anger. How could you even have anger? God runs the world. It's really your issue is with Bitachon, like you don't believe enough, because anger really just comes from I want things to be a certain way and they're not, which is like, to my mind, not a healthy way of dealing with anger. You don't get someone to calm down by anger by saying, you actually shouldn't be angry because God runs the world. It's like,
calm down. God runs the world. Calm down.
I'm not saying that's not a helpful idea. I'm not saying the idea that things are the way they should be. Of course, it's a helpful idea, but in the moment, I'm feeling aggression. It's not going to just disappear. It's actually going to hide in my neck for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So you gotta that is not something men in both the Orthodox and in the secular world. No one's taught. Go feel your aggression. Yeah. Do something about it. Go punch something.
And something simpler could also be like, I remember I got a pillow, and once a week at a certain time, I just beat the shit out of that pillow. I had a knife, spit on it, and I had a lot of things to get out of my body. Anger. At some point, you realize anger is an expression, and it needs to be expressed.
It needs to be expressed.
And it needs to be, you have to get it out of your system. It's almost like a buildup of just like a little battery pack that you needed for some scenario.
It sounds like catharsis, what you're saying, like the old Freudian concept of catharsis, which I haven't read the literature on it, but I heard that was sort of debunked, like the classic therapy scene in movies where it's like, punch the pillow. I feel like it works. I've done it.
I mean, I would say you have to look at the story too. But at some point in our society where we talk about our problems, we don't do anything about it, I feel like it could be really helpful. I
am so sick of talking about.
Yeah.
I've been on this wave for a long time where like I'll be going through something and I will call a friend out of weakness. Not weak. Yeah, sure. We'll say out of weakness. I was feeling down about something. I have problems. You call your friend, you call your buddy. They do all the active listening. They do which is beautiful. They're doing the best thing they can. It doesn't make me feel better. Not really. And I realize like you just talk too much. Like your body's like screaming at you. I don't just need you to talk about it. Talking about it's the first step. I need you to go do something about it.
Yeah. And I think our body is, I think I was talking to someone about this recently about like self-sabotage. And if you break it down, it's like, it's really self-preservation. We have a certain way, a certain belief system, a certain story. And our mind and body are keeping it going because at some point it helped us, you know? So if we're screaming, well, that's because at some point that would have been really helpful. And
when you were a baby.
It could be, yeah, whatever the situation was. And if we don't address that and allow ourselves to explore it, it's just like, first of all, it needs to be expressed, it needs to be witnessed, and you need to say thank you for showing me this. Where was this needed? Let's go back
to say thank you to who? The person needs to say thank you to the
your own anger.
You need to talk to your own anger and say thank you.
It's
thank
there
you.
for a reason.
I need it.
Yeah.
It's there for a reason.
Well, when did I need this? I needed this when I was 10 years old, and my teacher said I'm a nerd, and I picked my boogers or whatever, and you're all upset. My stories are horrible examples. But like,
no.
Yeah, but like with what is it? You go back and you're like, you know what? I was so Rachel then, but I had to go back to class and a test, whatever. Let's go back there. Yeah, and you really want to speak the shit out of that teacher, don't you? Yeah. Okay, go ahead and express it. Fine.
I would say that you can't really fully heal from a situation like that until you go back to your hometown and beat the shit out of that teacher.
Well, here's the thing. Or you experience it as, it's all a question of state. Meaning, it's all a question of how aware you are of your body. Because everything you're experiencing, well, what's a trauma? Right?
You told her?
A trauma
I have
is...
no idea, but...
Yeah. A trauma is an experience that it has rattled you beyond words. A trauma could be a positive thing. You had a baby.
Oh, the key word there is beyond words.
Exactly.
Yes, it's in the body. It's beyond words.
It's beyond words. It's an experience. Now, you have a baby, same thing. And that both, anyone who's had a kid goes, you don't understand. Yoni, my life changed. They all tell me, you don't understand. And they all say the same thing. And I'm like, did your life change? Yes, it changed. I'm totally different person. And the same thing, if someone goes trauma, and I'm like, you seem the same though. I remember I went through a trauma of my own. And I remember talking to some of my friends, like, I feel so different and broken. And he's like, honestly, Yoni, like, you actually seem exactly the same way. But the experience was so rattling. So all you need to do is create experiences within yourself that are so powerful, and you have to be able to handle that experience, and then you just change the story. And then the mind goes...
Okay, let's bring it back to as concrete as possible.
Sure.
Because we're talking very theoretical in our ideas.
Yeah, sorry, and I get all sciencey about this thing.
That's
People
fine.
go, what?
I want to bring it back to concrete ideas.
Totally.
Let's say, again, you are aware that you are feeling aggression, and you realize through introspection, I'm feeling aggression towards my 5th grade teacher, whatever it may be.
Yeah, we made the story.
Now, obviously, you can't do my thing, my personal therapy program, which
you
is
can,
beat the shit out of your teacher. Shouldn't
Could work.
Not very pro-social. And I wouldn't...
And the problem with that is, how would the repercussions be? Because, that won't heal you.
That is how... So then how do you feel... How do you run through that? With a concrete example.
Concrete example, let's say you're my client, you come in, I want to beat the shit out of my 5th grade teacher.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say this for everyone. Everyone's different. The story is different. And, it might be a different process. But an example of a process, there's many different ways it might be a burial, it might be a retrieval of yourself, it might be you going back there witnessing, or it might be, no, I beat this guy up, So if that was a scenario, let's say we had other people here, we could play it out. We can have someone else here. Make sure you're grounded, centered. You have some techniques, there's tools to ground yourself. Okay. I'm in my body and here. Let's talk about what did your teacher look like? What did it smell like in the office? What did it taste like? What are the thoughts that are going through your mind? Where were you seated? Where was the teacher standing or seated? Yeah, let's recreate it. How do you feel now? And usually the person's not going to be like, I'm just kind of thinking about ice cream. You got ice cream? No one's going to say that. Most people are like, well, man, it's coming back. I feel this feeling in my hands. So then it's important that they're aware. And I would say, a disclaimer for anyone, if you don't know how to ground yourself, then don't do this, because you're going to hurt yourself. Not for sure, but...
When you say you're going to hurt yourself, meaning you are reintroducing tension of trauma into your body.
It's like talking about trauma and not doing anything about it. The same thing, only it's more powerful. Now you're reliving an experience and you're not doing anything about it.
What is like a classic grounding technique in those situations? Because you really are bringing yourself back to it.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, you want to do more of the grounding. You want to actually strengthen your nervous system. So that's like, there's techniques and things to do. Another conversation of how to strengthen your nervous system. Like it's mental hygiene. But a grounding techniques could be learning how to breathe through your belly, how to exhale slowly. There's some works you could do there, and but it's good. I would say the process of learning how to breathe belly, chest, shoulders, exhaling shoulders, chest, belly. There's a rhythm of how to breathe. Learning how to do that. Stuff like that help you feel calm. Learning how to express aggression and let it go. Learning how to move things in that way. Okay, a technique would be like inhaling and exhaling slowly through your nose. Another one might be physically punching something, shaking your whole body violently, like just shaking really fast. Your whole body, shaking your head like a wild man. Something like that. Feel all the energy.
Personal life is when I'm feeling re-traumatized, or when I'm in the middle of just a clear trauma response, a panic attack, or just tension growing. There are times when it's not that bad. It's bad, but it's not that bad. And I will sit there and do breathing exercises and meditate, and I will feel better. Yeah. Often it is just not enough. Yeah, you need more. And then I feel like the opposite. Totally. I feel like it's actually I'm making it worse and a disservice to myself.
You're supposed to go to fight.
You're telling yourself
exactly.
You're in fight or flight, and you're telling your body.
Totally.
It's just still. Meditation has actually been very, very, very painful. Physically painful because it's
so let's dive into that. Yeah, totally.
And going like, hey, you're just gaslighting yourself. Again, you're just like, you need to chill. My body, totally. I need to punch.
Yeah.
Or flight.
And you do. And respect that.
Yeah.
So go punch something. Make sense?
Yeah.
At that moment you should.
Or run. Flight.
Run, totally. And that's the thing I would say in general. Calm is not an ideal state. Calm is a state, much like anger and running and fighting and flighting. They're all necessary states for survival or optimization of self. You need them all. So it's not like one's better than the other. It's a question of choice. At some point, our body needs something different. So we don't always need pizza. Like sometimes you need to express it in a different way. I would say calming techniques are meant to help you at a low level of anxiety, for sure. At higher levels, there's more powerful processes, and they are more aggressive and powerful, for sure. Just for the sense of this conversation, it's hard to it takes like a 3-4 day training.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. No, I'm not going to ask you to.
No, I'm happy to, but it's more of like.
If anything, a huge goal of mine for this conversation, I just feel like we've reached that goal, is we're bringing up so many ideas that people then can go do research into, find someone to teach them. We're not gonna right now give everyone the exact keys to the kingdom.
But I do think that yes, when I say grounding skills, I mean for low level anxiety. If you're my client, I would help you with the nervous system in the first place, so you can handle the panic attack. You know how to just, all right, I'm back in my body. To take people there, and then teaching them little minor skills. So just instead of waiting till it gets to 10, with a 3, bring it back to 0. Pause, 3, take it back to 0, and then keep the scenario. Okay, you see this room. What needs to happen now? Man, I'm really stressed. I'm sweating. What needs to happen right now for you to feel safe? Well, you know what I got to do? I just got to say, fuck you. All right, go ahead and let's scream. Fuck you. How do you feel right now? I'm shaking. Oh, how does it feel? You know what? I feel like angry. Okay, but do you feel more comfortable? Yeah, I feel comfortable. Yeah. What do you want to do now? Well, I want to express it this way. How would you help? Maybe let's take a step back, have someone sit in your seat as a kid, watch a scenario. What needs to happen for this little boy now? This little boy needs to tell the teacher, listen, little fucker, I'm going to beat the shit out of you, pull his beard down, deck him in the face. Like, okay, so we're going to reenact that. We're going to give this guy a little fake beard. You're going to go pull on it, and you're going to punch him in the face. And I want you to watch it from someone else's view. How does it feel? Does that feel right? Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay, go ahead and sit in that chair. And I want you to, punch the guy. Now, at that point already, he may already have a cathartic shift. He might start crying. He might start going, I'm safe. Wow, I can take care of myself. Or he might keep going. And then at some point, we might take him out, have him observe, and goes, is this working? Does it help? Just playing around with it. The thing is, our relationship with these things is the problem. When we realize it's just an expression, anger, anxiety, whatever, then we get to observe it and go, is it helping? Make sense? It's the fear of it. It's the fear of our own selves that puts us in a bind. That makes sense.
Yeah. That makes more than sense. That rings very true.
Yeah.
I think that's experientially for me, and I'm sure for others. The fear of yourself, the fear of. Yeah, I mean, we're taught so often not to make a scene, not to show that sort of emotion. We're scared of our own anger. Now. Yeah.
I could be traumatizing to even express. I'm gonna a little warning. The first time I remember doing this, I rattled my bones. Like I got so angry. It was traumatizing in a way because I experienced things so deep, and it was like, wow, like that world was a story, and now it's real. So
but
you want to be conscious with doing this with the word
confident that going there, like going back into the anger, into the hurt that you feel, whether it's hurt at yourself, anger at yourself, or hurt anger at God, hurt anger at parents, hurt anger at old teachers, whoever it may be, really going in there. Like, I can tell you right now, you know, like, I'm comfortable enough with this level of vulnerability. I know that I'm holding on to anger at certain people that I've expressed in almost what we would say passive aggressive, like, no, that's not it. That's not getting out.
No.
I've never screamed about it. I've never yelled at them. I've never really told them or expressed how much they hurt.
Yeah.
So
that's it here. I still have some areas where I even when I talk about this, I'm like, oh yeah, I actually never got it out fully with that guy. And
I just want to ask you all looking at, like, you fully believe and have not just believe, you've seen proof that going there and doing those things,
so my clients, it works,
will lead to better well-being, to a calming of the nervous system, even after years and years.
Especially after years, yeah.
Because you're finally expressing.
I'm trying. I house like anecdotally like hundreds of experiences of that with clients. Clients are coming in with like complex trauma. I'm talking about like whatever you think of, worse. And like some of these things, I'm like, it almost seems like a horror film, and it is. It just things that are just like, and then.
By the way, I have to, because jumping on that is something that is also, for me, I'll say this, tripped me up.
Yeah.
Is sometimes when I'm like feeling my feelings of like anger and hurt, or like, let's say like, I'm upset about yeshiva, let's say, right? And I always think to myself, I shoot myself in the foot, because what do? We go, oh, other people have it so much worse.
Right.
You know,
but it has nothing to do with that.
I could have been in the Holocaust. Like, and it's like, yeah, you could have, but like your pain deserves to be felt.
Yeah. And you know what? I found that the trauma you go through is not necessarily what creates the sensation that you feel, right?
It's holding it in.
Yeah, but people go through the exact same experience and different outcomes, right?
Yeah.
So I think the word big trauma, small, these are just words. People can have traumas in the weirdest, slightest situations if their nervous system was dysregulated enough. So these things are like, again, it's a symptom, right? The story is stimuli. Outer stimuli happened. It affected the inner stimuli, threw it off. So it's not about bigger or worse or less traumas. My point here is that what I'm saying is we consider, oh, that would never work for my trauma. Like some of the stuff I heard are some things that are just like a horror film stuff and real healing. And I didn't tell them this is the process and this is how it's going to work. We said, hey, are you open to trying something here? Are you open to exploring this? Yeah, let's try it. Now, I didn't do the first week of therapy. You know, this is the end of treatment when they're in their body.
There's a lot of trust also with them.
Well, they built a lot of trust with themselves. They know they can go there.
Nice.
You know?
That was good. That was
yeah.
That was what they said. That was good.
Yeah, they know, and it's one of those moments where I'm like, "Are you ready?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm ready." Like I'll create the scene. Yeah. I remember a situation of one of these clients. A lot of, I don't know how much information I could share on a thing, but
HIPAA.
No, not with regards to traumatic experiences, but a lot of just being sexually molested a lot as a kid, and then also being violently threatened, and the person would shoot at them also. There was a lot of stuff like that, and then threatened to kill their family, like a lot of stuff like that. So intense. And I remember like playing out the scene with him, and him like so ready. I played out the scene. I was the shooter for the scene.
Shit,
yeah. So I was the shooter, and we had to reenact it. And I remember him just being like, "Are you ready?" He's like, "Fuck yeah, let's go." You know, and he had to come back and save his little child. You know, and he went in there. He's like, "What a fucker!" And he just shot me dead, and I'm falling on the floor.
Is this somatic experiencing?
Well, here's the trick.
That's psychodrama.
Question. That's
psychodrama. That's not
somatic experiencing.
I'm talking about Peter Levine's thing.
Peter Levine thing in his gentle approaches, dealing with sensation. We could talk about a conversation. What does this bring up for you? We don't even have to go there. Let's process it. And there's research that shows it's highly effective.
Yes, there is.
There's 2 or 3 components that I find are ineffective. Number 1, Peter Levine does not teach people how to connect to their body. I remember working with him initially before it was like a hike.
You worked with him?
I went to one of his trainings.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm not like, I wasn't like his buddy.
Okay.
But I went to the training and I'm like, okay, I work with eating disorders. 90% of people with eating disorders at least are dissociated. Everyone who went through trauma is dissociated. Yeah. So great technique, but it doesn't work for all the people who need it because they're dissociated.
Right.
You know, and I remember asking him, and he's like, well, you just got to keep doing it. And I'm like, sounds like you haven't done that research, you know? So the thing is, people have to be in their body for the experience. So that's where I would say the yogic practices for me came in. Like using yoga practice to help people get back in their body comfortably. So once you're back in your body, like this is, I'm getting a crash course, but yeah.
Yeah.
But
In short, this is
you
not,
have to
this
be
is
comfortable in your body.
related to somatic experiencing, but you are going
A
steps.
blend. I use a blend with a lot of these approaches.
Some say, yeah.
You know, everything has a beauty, a gift, but I don't find any single approach effective.
Yeah. Eclecticism.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I do acupuncture,
Okay.
which I find to be incredible.
Yeah.
It's been helping me a lot of tension. And that's a very feminine, very soft space. They play like, you know, classic spa, like lights up a chanting music. And then like, you know, you imagine that maybe in certain therapy settings, there's going to be like that sort of like soft music in the background. And for these sort of things we're talking about, like psychodrama, where you're like reliving real trauma, where we want people to show the aggression and hurt. Like I want to, my future practice, like I'm making a hardcore playlist. We're gonna mosh pit in my office.
I have a punching bag in my office.
Yeah,
We're
playing punk. You're getting angry. You're getting whipped up, and it's funny. Something that I've done that has felt very healing to me, outside of the therapist's office, but definitely part of one would say the spiritual healing world, is I do ecstatic dance.
Awesome.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and I'm so grateful to that community. And there's actually like pockets in Brooklyn of like Jewish. Specific.
That was my concern of coming back to America.
Yeah.
I don't want to dance with anyone anymore.
They do a Shabbat dance. I go to like, I've had Friday night. I've had very complicated relationships to that, of course, because I'm sitting there out of breath after dancing for 2 hours on a Friday night, and some woman is chanting Lefadoti, and I'm like, this feels more I feel closer to God and myself than I felt in years. But no, it's Shabbos, like, you know, so that's a complication.
Wow. That's all. You got to connect you. That sounds so cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
I would love to connect you.
Wow.
But I have also been open to the feeling that has arisen in me sometimes when I'm at these dances, which is, this ain't it. Not for me, not for right now.
Yeah.
I need a mosh pit.
Yeah.
The women con on to this much quicker than the men. You see the men, like, it takes them a good hour to warm up at ecstatic dance. They're all like,
men haven't been using their body well.
no, we haven't been using our body well. It's not our fault, of course. And also, there's women there, and you want to be seen as masculine, and you
Stories. Yeah.
you're exactly stories. Oh, if I open up and I'm all weird and flowy, someone will think I'm gay. It's like, yeah, and it's like, if there's so much healing in just like being a flowy little squid on the floor.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I've played around with this at these dances where I'll get a little aggressive because aggression comes up.
Awesome.
And I'm like a little masculine. And I almost see some of the women sometimes like move away from me. And I'm like, that's fine. As long as I'm not the enemy here. And I see the men come at me. And all of a sudden I'm dancing with the men. And we're like,
wow.
and it's like, yeah, there's aggression here.
Totally.
Gotta try both.
Yeah.
You gotta try both.
No, I think especially
You don't need
for
therapy.
men.
You need to go to a rock concert.
No, I think especially
You
for
need to
men,
get in. You need to get a black eye and a mosh pit.
Yeah, dancing is so important. I find dancing is amazing, and I think you're on it in that way, and that's also a healing way. I think the one trick is, are you connected to your body while it's happening?
Yeah.
If you can feel...
What's a sign that you're not connected?
Well, if I ask you what you're feeling, and you say, feeling smart, if you think of an adjective or an emotion, that's not feeling. Feeling is a sensation. I feel bubbly, twisty, twirly in my body, my chest pulsing. That's feeling.
Meaning, maybe not an emotional feeling, a physical feeling.
Oh, what you really get to, what is a feeling? A feeling is really a sensation in the body, a conscious feeling, and our neocortex interprets that as sadness happens way after the game, way after the 8 ball. Yeah, in fact, part of what I do when I work with people is train them to be ahead of the 8 ball. So you can know what will like for me, I know if I sit with what I'm doing now and don't resolve anything, I will have a panic attack in maybe 4 or 5 days. I have 5 days to do a breathing technique that'll bring me down back to 0. But like I'm aware enough of my body to know what's coming up, what's coming down. I'm ready to have a relationship. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if you're aware of when you're like, I want to do. Well, wait, where do you feel that? Feel in my chest? I feel it's a rock shape. It's it's red, and maybe it's tense. Yeah, maybe it's blue. Maybe it's gold. I don't care. But it's some feeling I'm feeling in my heart, my legs, my face. Okay, yeah. And then what if you were like, now go ahead and move it? What do you feel now? Oh, it moved. Interesting. Oh, it got bigger. Okay, let's do it some more. Got smaller. Let's do it some more. Like move it around. You'll find yourself playing with energy. on a core level, it's what maybe Buddha's approach of what the subconscious is really just sensations in your very body.
Wow.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much. This has been
Yeah.
a really cool way to connect to you again. And also, this has been, I think, a really fascinating episode. I think we touched on so many ideas. And I know I'm going to do some Googling and some looking into and talking to you more and about some of the things we spoke about. And I hope that, some of the listeners do as well. I'm going to give you a little space to end this by, like, you want to tell people what about this retreat?
Sure.
Tell them about it. Tell the cameras what you got going on.
Do I tell the camera? Do I tell
the camera? Tell the camera.
Hi, camera. Hey, guys. So I'm actually co-founding a men's retreat. It's starting February 29th to March 4th. And our main goal is to help people, I wouldn't say with masculinity, but with clarity. And part of that, of course, is masculinity. But it's about clarity for yourself, like knowing what you feel and being able to say what you feel, being able to act how you feel, having a congruency with how you are on the inside and how you are on the outside, and finding like a rhythm in that way. And then from there, we'll call it from that authenticity, like clarity in your life moving forward. So, so come join. We have
Where can they get information?
Okay, it's shamaretreat.com. So it's like Shema, like Shema Yisrael. It's the phrase of listening, intently listening, which is also a meditation, by the way.
Of course.
Yeah.
And a haiku. Shema Yisrael, Shema Elokeinu, Shema Echad is a haiku.
There we go.
The wildest things.
Coincidence.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So it's about listening within, helping you get there, helping you get to listening within. So yeah, feel free to join, and you can always reach out, ask questions, maybe message on Shema Retreat, the Instagram, or you can message me personally at Yoni_Banayan, YONI_BANAYAN, or Shema Retreats. The website again is SHEMARETREAT.com. I think I got that right. Shema Retreat. And we're doing Costa Rica. And we're looking forward. It's going to be
use code ZACH to get 0% off. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we can do something like that. Yeah, we'll have a code ZACH.
Yeah.
It gets you $100 off. How's that? Yeah.
All right.
$100 off with code ZACH. Is that good?
I'm okay with anything.
Yeah. So we'll do code how do you spell Zach? With a CH or KH?
CH, and I appreciate you asking. Thank you very much. I feel very seen.
Yeah.
Very healthy.
Code Zach, CH. We'll put that in. $100 off.
Yoni,
thank you.
This was really fun, really cool. I remarked when you first walked in that the people on the camp, watching us on the internet, they're not going to get the full Yoni experience, because I do know that you often wear all white and then you wear the flowy robes. You look even more like Jesus. But I do think that besides for the clothing,
they don't want to scare people off. So
we did get a very true Yoni Banayan experience, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tune in, guys. Subscribe. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to be starting a Patreon soon. We'll talk about it. It'll be great. All right. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.